What's up, everybody? It's TJ with Faker to Make It. In today's video, I'm going to be unboxing some chisels I bought from Lee Valley online. And these are the Narex brand of chisels, and I haven't unboxed it yet or anything. So I wanted to do an unboxing and kind of take a look at these really budget-friendly options for chisels. But before we do that, I want to show y'all what I've been using for forever. Well, that's good. You always want to drop your chisels on the concrete. That's a good way to protect the, really refine the edge. Now, this old chisel I found, and all these chisels were my grandfather's chisels. And this old chisel is an Enderers. That's how you say it. But it's an old carpenter's chisel, and I use this for rough work. And it's handy because it's so long. This thing measures 8 5/8. So this is an 8 5/8 inch long chisel, whereas these other chisels, little butt chisels, look how small this is. This is a little, I'm assuming it's a Stanley. All the maker's marks have been rubbed off. This is only 6 1/4. But it is handy for getting into tight spaces, and I've actually managed to get this thing really, really sharp. And it holds the edge pretty good. This one is actually a Stanley that I bought years ago whenever I was doing carpenter work. And you can see that I spilt some lacquer thinner on it and ruined the handle. This one is probably the longest one I have right now, and it is an 8-inch long chisel, and it handles really well. It's got a nice edge on it, but I mean, it's just, I've used this thing for everything else but what it's intended for. And then I have 2 of these, and I'm not really sure, KR tools. These are just some cheap hardware store butt chisels, and believe it or not though, these things are pretty freaking sharp. They have a really good sharp edge on them, and these are 7 1/2 inches long. You can see I got them polished up on the backside. It's got a decent bevel. I've been trying a few different things. I don't like them. I don't like them because they're so short. I don't like them because they have this, looks like galvanized striking cap on the back of the handle, and it's just like plastic. But, when that's all you have, it's all you have. Here is another Stanley. Not really sure where this one came from. Got the metal cap on the back for striking. This one is also 8 inches. I'm assuming this is another Stanley, another just regular hardware store. This one's nice because it doesn't have the metal cap on the back. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the metal cap on the handle for striking is good in some scenarios, but I'm trying to get into a little bit more refined type of woodwork. This one is 7 1/2 inches long. This one is actually a pretty nice little chisel, and it gets razor sharp. And then the big boy here, I actually use this thing quite a bit. I'm sure this is a Stanley as well. This is a 1 1/2 inch chisel, and it was just another one that I found in my grandfather's cabinet shop. Pretty much all these I found in his cabinet shop, and I've been using them. Once I got them cleaned up and sharpened and everything, they've served me well since I got them. But the problem is they're just really short, and I don't particularly like the handles, and I really wanted to try out some wooden handle chisels, and I've been seeing nothing but good things about the Narex brand of chisels. So we're going to go ahead and bust this box open, take a look at them, and see what they look like straight out of the box without any sharpening. So here it is. Came in the other day. I've been dying to get these things open and looked at, but I wanted to do an unboxing. got some nice packing in there. Wow, these are awesome. So let me go ahead and pull them out of the box here. So just for scale, look at the size difference in these chisels. Now, granted, I've never been around, you know, professional, you know, woodworker stuff in the fine woodworking. You know, my grandpa and my dad, we did carpenter work, and my grandfather built cabinets, but you know, he used power tools because, you know, he was making a living with it, and he was not necessarily a production cabinet maker, but he built a lot of cabinets. So he had, in order to make money, he used power tools and stuff like that. And you know, he was self-taught. So there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years since he's been gone that, you know, I wish he would still have been around so that I could show him some of the things I've learned. You know, and I just, it's pretty fascinating to me, you know, like the stuff that he used in comparison to what, you know, other woodworkers have been using for decades and generations, you know. So I imagine, just like anything else, his chisels were tools, you know, and he used them for certain things. But now that I'm getting into some handwork and stuff, I need, you know, a nicer chisel. And really, the length to me is one of the most important things in my limited knowledge of things. But that just gives you some perspective on the chisels, you know. Wow. So the Narex chisel set here, you know, they're, like it says right here, made in the Czech Republic. I believe these handles are stained beech wood. The ferrules are nice and tight on them. It's got the nice little protectors on the end of them. That's pretty sharp. Really pretty chisels. They got a nice balance to them. They just feel really good in the hand. They have a kind of almost like a elliptical shaped handle. It's not perfectly round. It's almost like a hammer handle. It's longer across one way than it is the other. So it comes with a 1/4 inch, a half, and see, it's got this this oil on them and like this film. It's like maybe wax or some kind of plastic or something. Just really beautiful for the money. I mean, you know, these were under $60 for these chisels, and they are just, I think these are fantastic. I'm gonna have to get them cleaned up and get this stuff off of them to truly see how sharp they are. From what I've read, they are really sharp out of the box, but they got some kind of film on them to protect the edges, but you can still feel it. They're really sharp. And what I've read is that you can remove these marks with acetone or lacquer thinner or something like that. I think it would be cool to remove them, and I believe, like one guy said, that he believes that Narex did this on purpose because some people just don't, you know, most people don't like having these stamps on there, so you can remove these stamps. And made in the Czech Republic, and they are CRMN steel. I'm gonna have to look and see what the hell that means. But from what I've read, it's good steel, holds an edge, and they get really, really sharp. And we'll take the calipers, I think, and see how close they are to the exact measurement that they're advertised as. So let's take a break and get these things cleaned up, and we'll put the calipers on them just to see what we're looking at. So I really hope the fan isn't bothering y'all. I'm already soaking wet. So I got my caliper zeroed here. I'll just take it. I mean, that's pretty freaking dead on. Not that any of this part matters. I was curious. My woodworking skills aren't that refined that this is a problem or an issue for me, but I was just curious to see how close, and they are, wow, really nicely done. 1.0080. That's, so they're dead on for width. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some maybe some acetone and wipe these down and see what happens to the stain in the handles, and see if we can get these markings off of them. Again, I hope the fan isn't making too much noise. It's just so humid and miserable out here right now. I'm just going to take some of this acetone and put it on my paper towel here, put a little bit, see what happens. Right off. There it is, right there, that little black line. Fantastic. Surely they done that on purpose. And what I'll do to keep, because you know where I live, everything rusts in a matter of minutes. I'll take some of that Johnson's paste wax and just wipe them down really good. And that's a common practice that I do here in my shop, is I make sure that everything has a nice coat of paste wax or some sort of rust inhibitor on everything, and you can see that whatever they use is stuck on there pretty good. And now that I've got that stuff off, you can definitely tell these are extremely sharp right out of the box. So you have to be extremely careful when you're cleaning these up. A short, real quick anecdotal story. Yesterday I was using my new Japanese pull saw, and I don't know what I was thinking, and it really bothers me whenever there's sawdust stuck in the saw, and I've never had a saw this sharp. And I just took my fingers and just ran it back this way, and you can't really see it on camera, but it took just the finest half a micron layer of skin off. And it freaked me out, because I just did like that, and I'll mess around and do it again if I'm sitting here showing you. And it's just running down the side of these teeth. They're so sharp, and that set is so fine that it will cut you before you ever even know it happened. So I definitely have to get used to that, because I have never had saws this sharp. So be careful. If your instincts want to just, I've got a 100-year-old dovetail saw, and it has basically no set on it, so I just clean the teeth out and it won't cut me. But these will lay you open, and it probably will not be a fun ride to the emergency room. So I'm gonna keep cleaning these up with this acetone, and we'll come back and maybe do a sharpness test and see how well they perform straight out of the box. Alright, so I got them nice and cleaned up. One thing I ran into was I had to, they had like this oily sheen all over them, which was expected. But once I removed the oily sheen off of these with the acetone, there was still some sticky stuff left, and it was just like tape adhesive. And it was pretty, you can still see where it's just got a little smudge of it right there. There's nothing there, but you can kind of move it around a little bit, and it was enough that I needed to take it off because I didn't want to, whenever I do get to the point where I start putting these on my stones and whatnot, I don't want to put that adhesive on my sharpening stones. So what I had to do was I got this 3M general purpose adhesive cleaner, and if you don't have any of this stuff in your shop, I can't recommend this stuff enough. It's kind of expensive, but I've had this container for about 3 years now, and it will remove adhesives safely and without bothering, you know, clear coats on vehicles and stuff like that. The smell isn't terrible. It's just really, really good stuff. And I mean, just like now, the acetone wasn't really doing anything but kind of melting the adhesive, but this stuff just completely breaks it down. And whatever its chemical makeup is, it works great, and it goes a long way. So I suggest everybody has some of this in their shop or house because it works better than Goo Gone and any of that stuff. So I had to use this because the adhesive stuff was more prominent on the back, and you can see the grain direction of the grind on this steel is perpendicular to the length of the chisel, which these are really polished pretty finely. And you know, it was just enough that it was hard to remove with the paper towel. So I took my Dremel and just kind of buffed it and heated up and just got it out of there because I was tired of rubbing on this stuff. But I got enough of it off that it's not going to be an issue. I can't feel it. It's not sticky anymore. And you can definitely tell how sharp it is without all that crap on it. One thing to note is the edge of these chisels on both sides, the supposedly non-cutting side, is very, very sharp on both edges of all the chisels. So whenever I go to dress them up after we do our little test cuts with them, I'm probably going to ease that just a little bit with a really fine ceramic polishing stone, just so that it doesn't have that really blade sharp edge on it. Because, you know, I get really handsy with my chisels and stuff, and these are big chisels, so, you know, I just want that to not cut me if I'm in the heat of battle using them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to the vise and do some test cuts and see how they do. So I'm not really sure what, you know, a test cut is supposed to look like, but I have a piece of 2x4 yellow pine, and then I have this piece of white oak, so that should cover hardwood and softwood. So, but first, let me grab one of my old chisels and see how it does first. So I got the old chisel here. Just gonna try it out. Just lay it like this, see what happens. Not too bad. Now we'll grab one about the same size. Definitely feels better in the hand to have more chisel to hold. Wow, okay. Definitely a different dynamic holding a chisel with that much more leverage, and I've really got to step my sharpening game up because this thing is sharper out of the box than my chisels that I work with every day. Wow, okay, so that's just taking off tiny little thin shavings, just so freaking sharp. Okay, so that would be the one that's called the 1/2 inch on pine. Put our piece of white oak in here and see what happens. We'll use this, our old chisel first. It's just really hard to hold. You're doing, you know, stuff like this. Okay. You can tell it takes far, far less pressure to get this thing to cut. Just so much sharper. And I bet with a little bit of refinement, these will be terrifyingly sharp. So, I wonder if I can pull off a end grain cut. Like maybe do some paring. Yep. Oh wow. I know this isn't very scientific, but in my hands there's a massive difference. That paring cut was the new chisel, and then we'll take the old one. Don't get me wrong, the old chisel's pretty sharp, but you can tell that it takes more effort than with this one. And you know, the bigger chisels have far more leverage, and you're not so crowded on your work. So that is fantastic. Let's grab the 1/4 inch chisel. Very, very sharp as well. Again, this is a piece of white oak. Here's the end grain nicely. So we got a little bit of that crap on there. Let's grab the 3/4. Very nice. Very nice. 1 inch. Very sharp. Very, very nice. Fantastic. Gonna let that paste wax sit for a little bit, and I'll come back and polish it off and buff it off, and that ought to protect them pretty well from rusting. You'll have to reapply it regularly, but tools that get a lot of use are less likely to rust, so hopefully that'll help too. And just have to add these to my anti-rust, my rust preventative schedule that I have with the rest of my tools. All right, y'all, that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up pretty quick. It's hot and I want to turn my fan back on. I love y'all, but you know, I love not being soaking wet just as much, if not more. So I went ahead and built my stop block gauge. It looks like an old school paddle. I don't know. I just didn't want it to look too simple. I want to be able to hang it on the wall so I remember to use it. And basically I have a P for 25 and a P for 30. That's the plain irons. And then a C for 30 and a C for 25. And that's the chisels. Still going to do a little more research on that. But for now, the main thing is that I have my 25 degrees for my bevel on my chisels. My plain irons, that I'm still toying with that back and forth on the best method. I've got the new wet sharpener, whetstone sharpener, whatever, in there. So I'm been kind of doing some practice and some trying out some different stuff. But this is going to make it a lot easier. I can just put my chisel on here and then make sure that I reference the right side the way it's written in there with the Dremel. Just put my chisel in there, bump it up and tighten it down. And then that's the right degree or the right bevel angle. Now, one thing I found is each of these chisels are a few small degrees off from being identical to each other. So they was all within 22 to 25 degrees. So I went ahead and we're just gonna make them a consistent 25 degrees. And I used the measurements on the honing guide. Like I said earlier, 30 millimeters projection angle. 30 millimeters is for a 30 degree angle, and 40 millimeters is for a 25 degree angle. So I use this, and it's not so much the geometry that's, I mean, it is important, but it's being consistent every time, because if you're off a few degrees here and there, then you're gonna have to remove all that extra material instead of just removing the material that you need to remove to make a sharp edge. Now, I want to do an experiment and use these for a while. I did not put these on a stone to flatten the back. I didn't put them on a stone to do the bevel. I'm not going to do anything to them until I have to sharpen them. And then whenever I have to sharpen them, I'm going to flatten the back. I really want to see how far I could take them straight out of the box without doing any work to them, like what I've done on here on these old ones, and flatten the back of them and really did a lot of work to them. I want to see how far I can take it without doing that preliminary work on them. I think it'll be a pretty neat experiment. Now, this is a prime example, and there's something I want to talk to y'all about real quick before we go, is that not all things that are cheap are bad, but not all things that are cheap are good either. These are a prime example that these are really affordable chisels, and they're pretty fantastic in my opinion so far. On the other end of that, I decided to get some of these $12 carving chisels. It's a carving chisel set from Harbor Freight. You get all this, right? This is an example of not all things that are cheap are good either. The way the metal was formed in like this little V gouge is such that you can never file this in such a way to be able to make this cut a V groove. There's nothing you can do with the way this thing was manufactured. You would lose everything. It was about this long, and I've tried everything I know to do. And another thing about these is they're super soft. Really, really soft. Real soft. They, you hit these with a file and it just wipes it out. I mean, you can remove so much material with a file. I even had to resort to sandpaper. So just terrible steel. Now, these, the little U gouges, the little U-shaped gouges, they work pretty good. The geometry's okay, and you can make some nice little scallops with it. But I mean, that's about it. I mean, the V gouges is what I was really wanting out of these. They're no go. The flat regular chisels, I guess they might be good for something. They had some skew chisels, but you know, I wanted to get a set of carving chisels, and I was like, you know, I wonder, you know, it's only 11 bucks. I mean, if nothing else, I have a bunch of file handles now, which is basically what those are. You just have to kind of see what other people have said about it, try it for yourself, take a risk, jump out there, see. These were under 60 bucks, and I feel like I've got a fantastic value for the money that I spent. And some of these chisels out there on the market go for $100 or more, one chisel. So you can imagine what it would cost to get a whole set. So the Narex chisels, I think, are a really good buy, and you can get them just about anywhere. I got these from Lee Valley. I don't think you can go wrong with them. If y'all would, leave down in the comment section if you have any experience with these Narex chisels and what you think about them. Because I'm really curious to see how many people like them and how many people hate them. This is my first time having what would be like a real nice, you know, not a nice chisel, but a chisel that's not just a cheap box store style of chisel that's just a butt chisel and too short. You know, this makes all the difference in the world. So I'm really excited to be able to put these to use, and I cut my first dovetails the other day using this chisel. So, I mean, it's not always about the tool, but in this case, it does make it easier on you. Let me know what y'all think about this video. Let me know what y'all think about the Narex chisels. I'm tired of sweating. I'm soaking wet. I look like a sweat hog. So I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. Y'all be safe. Y'all come back now. Oh yeah, y'all don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to.